All right, this is the lesson where everything is going to come together, and you're going to see why you put in all the work memorizing these 5 CAGED shapes and where the root notes are, because we're going to put them together to play through the entire CAGED sequence all the way up and down the fretboard. And this first module has been a lot of the heavy lifting in the foundation for everything that's going to follow throughout the rest of this course. And once we're done with this module, this is the last lesson in this module, we're going to get a lot more musical with things. We'll be playing with a lot more jam tracks and doing chord progressions, working on leads, pentatonics, things like that. But we kind of had to go through this and get this down first. And the goal for this lesson is not for you to be able to play through the CAGED sequence like up and down the fretboard lightning fast. It's for you to just understand the concept of how to link the 5 CAGED chords together. So let's get into this. Okay, if you've done the work up to this point of memorizing all the root notes in the 5 CAGED shapes and then done a little work on being able to move them up and down the fretboard, you've done most of the heavy lifting. The only thing I really care about in this lesson is you getting this concept down of how to link the shapes up and down the fretboard. We're gonna work on actually physically linking these shapes up more in the next module with a bunch of different major chords. For now, I'll just worry about the concept and just plant the seeds of getting the CAGED shape down and just understanding it mostly. We'll have plenty of time to work on this later. But here is the basic concept. So what we're gonna do is use all the CAGED shapes, C, A, G, and D, to play C shapes up and down the fretboard, okay? And we're gonna start with a C, just an open C chord, okay? Here's the idea. The root note that's farthest up the fretboard this way, in whatever shape you're currently on, in this case a C, we have 2 root notes here on the 3rd finger and with our 1st finger on the A string, right? That root note that's farthest up the fretboard this way becomes the lowest root note of the next chord shape in the sequence. So what's in the CAGED sequence, what's after C? C, A, right? So this root note farthest up the fretboard this way becomes the root note farthest down the fretboard this way for the next shape, which is an A. Okay? So let me say that again one more time. The root note in whatever shape you're currently on that's farthest up the fretboard this way becomes the root note that's farthest down the fretboard this way for the next shape in the sequence. So we move them from a C to an A shape. I don't even care what the fact that I'm playing a C chord. I'm just going through the sequence, right? Although if I look at the root notes of this A shape, the root notes are on the A string and the G string, and those do end up indeed being C notes now. So we're playing a C chord using the A shape. So a really good thing to do is just sit here and just watch this video a bunch of times until you really understand that concept. You may have to go through it a few times before it's super clear. But when I play the C, I'm seeing an A string, like a A string root note. The A chord shape also has an A string root note. So the adjacent shapes share those root notes. This A string root note right there is also in the A shape. Right? And when I'm playing this chord, I see this A root note on the A string, it's a C, and I use it to play a C chord. Just an open C shape, right? So that's the thing you have to go through. C, A, G, E, D. They all butt up against each other and they all overlap and share root notes too. So where are your root notes in this A shape? They're right here on the A string with your 1st finger, and they're right here on the G string with your 3rd finger. So the root note farthest up the fretboard this way in this A shape will become the root note that's farthest down the fretboard that way in the next shape. What's the next shape? C, A, G, right? So we need a G shape, and that is going to be our root note that we go for our G shape. And like as I'm playing this G shape, there's my root note that's the farthest down the fretboard this way now. I can still see this A shape within that G. I just took the root note farthest up this shape this way, and it became the root note of the next chord in the sequence that's farthest down this way in this shape, right? And don't worry about getting this down super hardcore now as far as being able to play through it again. I just want you to understand the concept. So where are my root notes in this G shape? I'm still playing a C because all my root notes are C's now. I'm playing a G shape though. So take the root note that's farthest up the fretboard this way, and that becomes the root note for your next shape that's farthest down the fretboard that way. So I have 2 in this case. I have root notes on my E strings and I have a root note on my G string, right? So I'm gonna take the root notes farthest up this way, grab them, and make them the root notes for the next shape in the sequence, which is a C, A, G, E, and those root notes become the root notes that are farthest down the fretboard this way for the E shape. Okay? Now where are my root notes here? E, E, then I have one that's higher on the D string. Okay, what's the next chord in the sequence? It's a C, A, G, E, D, so I need a D now. Okay? I'm going to use that root note that's farthest up this way to base my next shape on, which is a D. Then my root notes are automatically on a C here and here, so I'm playing a C chord using the D shape. And it takes a lot of visualization skills to be able to do this, and it takes time and practice, but we'll be practicing this a lot in the next module with a lot of different major chords. So again, the only thing I'm concerned about here is you understand the idea and memorize the fact that, hey, root note farthest up this way becomes the root note of the next chord shape up in the sequence that's farthest down the fretboard this way. So root note here on my pinky, root note here with my index finger for the D shape, still playing a C chord, and this root note farthest up the fretboard becomes the root note farthest down the fretboard for the next chord in the sequence, which is a C, A, G, E, D. Oh, you have to start over on a C. See, this is how this root note now becomes the root note that's farthest down the fretboard this way for this shape. And when you do this, you'll start to notice the pattern. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't matter where you start or what chord you start on, it's always the same. I could start like on a B flat. I'm using the A shape, right? My root notes are on the A string and the G string right here. What's after an A in the sequence? C, A, G. That's the next chord in the sequence, and there's my root note that's farthest up this way, so I just grab that and put my next chord shape on G. Same thing here. What's the root note farthest up on this G shape? There, I'm on B flats, right? There are these E strings. Those root notes farthest up this way become the lowest root notes this way for my next chord in the sequence, C, A, G, E. Same thing, D. Same thing, C. Then I'm back to where I started with a B flat. Okay, again, don't worry if you're like, if your mind is being blown right now and be like, I don't understand. Just watch this video over and over again until everything becomes clear. Like, guitar has a way of being like a manual and manual focus mode. You flip it one way and it becomes a little clearer, and then you flip it the other way a little more, and then you adjust it in and it becomes clear. So treat this lesson like that. Watch it a few times until you really understand how this works, and only worry about the C chord right now. And just take it two at a time if you need to, just worrying about that concept of being able to visualize that next chord, A, up the fretboard. Highest root up becomes your lowest root of the next shape. And then once you have just those two changes down really well, then add the next change in G, E, D, and then you're back to a C. All right, there isn't gonna be a practice session for this video just because we're gonna be practicing this a lot in the next module. We have plenty of time to get that down. Plus the main idea here is just to kind of see why you were learning these chord shapes, the 5 chord shapes and the root notes, and just understand the concept of what the CAGED sequence is. It's just a sequence of chords up the fretboard that are predictable and always the same no matter where you start. Okay, I know that's a lot of work that you've put in throughout this module already, but again, you've done a lot of the heavy lifting that you need to be successful with the rest of this course. And like I said, we are going to get a lot more musical with jam tracks, chord progressions, pentatonics, all of those types of things to be able to open up the fretboard for yourself. For right now, if you've got the shapes down, understand what the root notes are, and you just understand the concept of connecting the shapes up and down the fretboard, you're ready to move on to the next module where we're going to drill putting the CAGED sequence together with a bunch of different major chords. And really, until you can do that, what we're going to be doing in the next module, there's no reason to move on to like minor chords or pentatonics or anything like that, because until you can do, you know, the major chords, that's really your foundational building block of everything else you're going to be doing with CAGED, so that's really important. All right, if you haven't already, go to guitarfam.com and create your complimentary account where you'll be able to access the first module of all of our premium courses, including this one, the CAGED roadmap, and the bar chord masterclass is a really good kind of companion course for this one. And as you progress, you know, feel free to send us videos of your progress if you have any questions. And if you just feel like you need a little bit of extra help, go to guitarfam.com and schedule a personal private one-on-one lesson with me. The first one is complimentary for all Guitar Fam members. I'll see you in the next module. We're gonna work on moving the CAGED sequence throughout some other major chords. I'll see you there.